Okay, I'd like to now to come back to Guernsey and the work that you've done as part of your residency there. It's interesting because in some way I feel like looking at the work, I feel like there are some elements that has been sort of that I know from Mark Power, the way that you treat landscape, etc. But at the same time, I felt like it was like almost like a new ways of photographing. That you were very close, and you used lots of close-up and lots of detail that you don't see very much in your previous work. Suddenly you felt like maybe a different ways of working. How did you feel about the whole residency?
Well, you asked me to, you said specifically you'd like me to photograph the landscape. I remember that. And I knew I wanted to, as you know, in Guernsey, it's not easy to drive around and just park anywhere. So, you end up seeing something from the corner of your eye as you drive past, and then you have to park a mile away and walk, it's just, and everywhere you park, you're not allowed to park anyway. So I thought it would be much better if I went on a series of walks. And carrying my big camera on a tripod, although I did do that a little, that's tough. And so I thought it would be really nice to get back to using a handheld camera, albeit a medium format one with very a lot of quality. And I thought I'd try using a ring flash as well, which has a tendency to flatten everything, gives a very even light. But I did still use my tripod-based camera, so I mixed the two ways of seeing or ways of working, not ways of seeing, but the ways of working together somehow. I hope it was successful.
I remember you saying to me during your time in Guernsey that you felt some kind of sense of freedom in, like you were like almost like liberating yourself from the tension of being concentrating, and suddenly you felt like walking around and just sort of going with your instinct to discover some dark places of Guernsey, etc., etc. Because remember also that I say to you, amongst photographing landscape, but I say to you, you have carte blanche, which means like do whatever you want. All I want is like a Mark Power interpretation of Guernsey, and I think you made the most out of it in some way.
Well, thank you. With the American work, that's all made on foot. Very little of that is made from passing something and going on a U-turn and going back again. Because I've learnt that walking is the way to find things. Your pace is slow. You see things in much more detail. The difference in the American work and what I did in Guernsey was the American work is tripod based. It's very distanced, and the Guernsey work was very intimate. But I was also interested in the way that Guernsey markets itself, or the whole of the Channel Islands market themselves as
a sort of touristic destination.
As a touristy place, as a place where the tax is low. But once you start walking and realizing there's quite a difference between the people who are there temporarily, working for the finance industry, and the people who are born in the island, there's a little bit. It seemed to me that there was a sort of a bit of a gulf between those two things. But also, I went to Guernsey a couple of times on holiday myself when I was a boy. Off I go again, but. And so Guernsey for me was this holiday pretty place where I played on the beach, and then it's very interesting when you step out of the hotel or whatever, or you drive somewhere and you go on a walk and you start looking, and you start working with metaphors as well. Then, it starts to look like anywhere would, a pretty dark place.
Yeah.
But I think where the work starts to sing for me is the fact that it particularly in a place like Guernsey, which has this, our preconception of it is something very, very different. So I'm not saying that this is what Guernsey looks like or Guernsey is. It's just an impression. And as I say, it's very important to understand for anybody who gets angry about the work that I made in Guernsey as being.
I think nobody did so far.
You could do this anywhere. It's just that it's more powerful when you do it in a place which is is not perceived in that way.
Yeah. But then
And nowhere on earth is a paradise. You know, there's
Absolutely.
always problems.
Yeah.
And you don't need me to tell you you know, I was reading, I read the local newspaper most days, and, you know, I mean, it's fraught with domestic problems and all sorts of things.
Like
anywhere else.
Like anywhere else, yeah.
Well, you said it.
But then you also introduce something which I mean, I guess in looking again through all your work, you introduce something in Guernsey about humour as well. There's quite a lot of humour in your work in Guernsey. I mean, do you remember I mean, I'm sure you do remember the photo of the gnome being sort of killed.
Gnome?
Do you remember?
Gnome, silent G.
The man with the Batman mask.
Yeah.
Next to, and then that's where we're going to start introducing the idea of sequencing for you and everything. But I remember very clearly the man with a Batman mask next to a hedge veg, what we call hedge veg in Guernsey, which is stop stealing.
Yes,
So there's
the Caped
a
Crusader
lot
will
of touch
sort it
like
out.
that, which may put a smile on my face because I know that side of Guernsey, but not everybody know that as well. And
Well, there's not enough humour in photography. I do try. I mean, I
But
like
it
to
is.
think there's humour in a lot of the things I've done, but often it isn't noticed. But yeah, with Guernsey, I think the joy I had of working in Guernsey is in those pictures. Actually, I think you can really feel the freedom I had.
comes through, definitely.
And I love being there.
I mean, the man painting private road by the sea was also again very
because I became very obsessed by this idea of the private land. You know,
yeah, we should explain the
Terre à la
Monde
Monde,
as well.
meaning, well, you explain.
No, you go for it.
Meaning private property.
Private land, private property, not trespassing.
And as I say, I was given this fantastic, the first car I was lent was this enormous Range Rover that was bigger than the road, felt bigger than the road. And I couldn't park it anywhere. I just went round and round and round. And I must come back to this place. I must come back to this place. And I just couldn't stop anywhere because there was nowhere to park unless you had your own private parking space in front of your house. So that was good in a way because that forced me to get to work on foot.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd like maybe to finish this interview with the theme of your, which is very, very important to you, which is about the editing and sequencing your work, because I've watched you personally sort of setting up, when we set up the exhibition in Guernsey, and how much time you spend in front of each photo and trying to, even after they've been sort of printed and everything, so after all the work that you spend in front of your computer, you still that the photos arrived in Guernsey, and then you started sort of really concentrating on each photo and trying to work out which one would work best together, etc. So that is something very, very important to you. And how do you operate at that level? What are the various elements that you take into consideration to actually sequencing your work?
Well, first of all, I collect pictures. That's the adjective I use, because it's I'm often working out what I'm doing by the very act of doing it. That's important to understand. So I'm collecting things that I want to photograph, and I may or may not use them later. And then, I don't think that most photographers spend enough time with the work that they've made. They're constantly making more and more and more work, or they're not really doing either. But I try to strike this balance where I'm certainly far from taking pictures every day. I work in bursts, short bursts, but every day I'm thinking about what I'm doing, and I'm looking closely at what I'm doing, trying to learn from my mistakes, but also to carry mental pictures around in my head of things I've done already. In Guernsey, let's just say, as an example. So all the pictures that I've done in Guernsey at this point, before I go out for the next walk, that are already good, are in my head. And then when I see something in the landscape,
that's where you start figuring.
Then I start thinking about, this would go really well with the Batman picture, but I've got to be able. It was the other way around, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so here's a thing that has the potential, an object that has potential to go with the Batman picture, but then I have to remember the structure of the Batman picture so that I can photograph this new thing in such a way that I know that visually they'll work together. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's what I do all the time. So I think and so I would stress that it's really important to spend time thinking about how you might use the work. So you collect the pictures, but then that's the easy bit. Making the pictures in the first place is the easy bit. Actually sitting down and trying to make sense of what you're doing and what you want to say, for want of a better word, is really difficult. And you have to sort of impose deadlines upon yourself. I go looking for, I'm thinking about making a book or something, or getting an exhibition, to give myself a deadline. Because that's another thing, is when is a project finished? If you're interested in collecting pictures, then I could go in America for the rest of my life. I might well do that anyway, because it might come sooner than 10 years.
Yeah. But to have a deadline sort of impose you to work in a certain way.
To always think about, at some point you have to think about the final product. You have to think about, and you have to make really hard decisions.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to, write down what it is you think you're doing, because that's actually very hard to do as well. And getting students to write down a proposal about what they want to do. They don't want to do that, but of course it opens up all these ideas in their brain. It makes them face up to what they want to do. And, I've been doing this a long time, but nothing's changed. I still have to do that. Yeah. It's still a struggle.
Yeah, I understand that.
And I think, I did one project, 26 different endings, which was very conceptually tight. I could only work from the edge of the A to Z and look out into the landscape that fell off the edge. I found that extremely difficult, and it didn't feel right to me. I'm much more of a roamer, I move around, I collect pictures, I work out what I'm doing, and then I try to make sense of it afterwards, or it's partially through the project, some way through the project. I've always done that.
Now that you are a well-known photographer, a very recognized, established photographer, does it make your work easier in some way? Does it put less pressure on yourself? Because you come across as someone who put enormous amount of pressure on yourself right from the beginning. Does it ease with the recognition?
No, I think it gets worse.
Very present. It gets worse,
especially since I now do Instagram, and I've got I've built up a following, and it's yeah. And I'm terrified, of course. I remember Kudelka saying, that all photographers make their best work before their 40th birthday. I'm now 60. I've just turned 60, and I just hope someone tells me to stop when it's clear that the work is going backwards, because I don't want to be that boxer in the ring that keeps getting knocked down and getting up and knocked down again. And there are other things that I feel I want to do, and as I get older, I think I might like to write about photography. I don't have a novel inside me, unfortunately. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe there are photographers out there who are in their 70s who are doing really still amazing work. I think it's about thinking about what you're doing and adapting to using the kind of equipment that you can more easily use as you get older. I don't know how we got into this conversation. It's a bit grim, isn't it?
No,
but it's something I think about a lot. That I use heavy equipment at the moment. I'm quite often working on my own. How long can I keep going like this? But I'm feel the same as I ever did at the moment. So let's hope I can keep my health.
Yeah. Finally, my last subject, which is not about photography, it's about your love of football.
Oh, yes. Let's cut the rest of the interview altogether and just talk about that.
No, because you made me laugh one day. You said to me, every time I put a football news related or football related news related on my Instagram account, I tend to lose the amount of people following me. So people tend to, you are a photographer, but you can't be a photographer and a football fan. So
I can, and there are plenty of us.
Yeah.
No, I'm really obsessed with Leicester City, and 2016 was the year Leicester won the Premier League. People
God,
know.
Yes.
Did I mention that?
Remember that? Did you mention that?
Yeah, but it was also the year that I think it's the year Trump got elected. It was the year of the Brexit vote. I mean, the world went mad in that year.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think I died and went to some kind of heaven with Trump in it, because I think this kind of thing can't happen, all these things at the same time. But I grew up in Leicester. I used to go you know, home and away matches all the, you know, I adored the team for all these years, and
Yeah.
then I never thought they would win anything in my lifetime, and then
you
they win
are.
the Premier League,
Yeah,
and
and
we
you
have
are,
a really
you are currently
third.
Third?
No, fourth.
Fourth.
Yeah, Arsenal over.
Arsenal is
But that's not bad, is it?
yeah, it's not
It's
bad.
only
at
8
all.
games gone, but it's not
Yeah.
bad.
But I
But,
love the
uh,
fact also that, you know, it's very much part of the British identity, and I think your work is very much related to that, and you know, it's good not to differentiate.
Well, I think it's also a big escape for me. I don't want to think about photography all the time. So when Saturdays come around, it's, you know,
Good for
can't
you.
wait for the
Good
kickoff,
for
you know. And my family really don't understand that at all. They really don't understand the love
This
of
is part
football.
of the conflictual sort of issue, or
Yeah,
the issue
yeah.
within the family.
I mean, when Leicester won the Premier League, did I mention that? You know, that night, you know, I just couldn't stop crying, actually. And the kids were just saying, "Oh, don't be ridiculous." And my son would just say, "Oh, well done, well done." You know, I know it's nothing. I didn't do it. I know it's nothing to do with me. But let me have this moment, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a good one.
Well, Mark, thank you so much. I'd like to, just as a conclusion, to remind people that actually a book might be released, or hopefully,
Yes,
will
it
be
will.
released
It will.
by Ghost
Yes.
about the work in Guernsey, so
Mhm.
Terre à l'Amande, which I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too.
And then I'd like to thank, obviously, Art Fund, the Guernsey Museums,
Yes,
and the
thank you.
Guernsey Arts Commission for helping us with the commission, but also for this interview as well. So, Mark, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise, likewise. Always a pleasure,
and,
Jason.
see you soon
Thank you.
in Guernsey. Thank you.